that nice introduction, Terry, and I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. You know, SAP HANA and the use cases for 2012 and what we saw then and what we're expecting to see in 2013. So first, our agenda, pretty simple. We'll talk about SAP HANA, give you a brief refresher. We'll go over the use cases, the common use cases for 2012 and how we see them evolving in 2013. A bit of some information about Utopia, who we are, just so it kind of validates our perspective on the marketplace. We are a global enterprise data management consulting firm, customers in a number of industry verticals, oil and gas, utilities, CPG, manufacturing, and we have a strong specialization in what I call the SAP ecosystem, and that's SAP Business Suite, HANA, SAP BW, and those applications. So what are the key drivers here for HANA? It's this whole big data explosion. And understand that this isn't an explosion. This has been happening ever since we've been creating information, but as we've been growing information and expanding our footprint, it's all about trying to get more value out of that data in the applications that we're using. And HANA is one of those things that allow us to perform more advanced analytics and derive greater value from those information assets. So that gets to what is SAP HANA. It has to do with three of these horizontals here. Real-time analytics, real-time applications, real-time platform. And inside of those three horizontals, you got such things as data warehousing, sensing and response applications, certainly databases, and if you delve into that a bit further, SAP HANA runs on a real-time platform, an in-memory platform, and this real-time or in-memory platform is supported by a number of hardware manufacturers, and generally it starts out as the platform is about 1 gigabyte, or not 1 gigabyte, about 128 gigabytes in size for the low in-memory platforms, and then increases to all the way up to 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, 4 terabytes, and even higher. So the capabilities are based on the fact that within HANA you've got your in-memory computing engine, which is a row column data store plus the calculation and planning, and along with your data management services. So with that, let me get into some survey data that we have. And that is come from the Aberdeen group when they surveyed the people and their respondents, and they did a comparison between in-memory computing and regular disk-based computing systems. And I think this is rather telling. As you can see in the bar charts here, that the left-hand column is for the people, or the dark brown vertical bars are for those people that have in-memory computing systems, and the lighter tan bars are for those people who don't. And so the first question they asked those respondents in their survey pool was, how satisfied are you with your self-service queries? Or let's start out with, are you satisfied with your self-service queries? 69% of the in-memory computing people said they were. Less than half, only 48% of the non-in-memory respondents said they were. So forgive me, there's a little screen. I don't know why that error keeps on coming up on my screen. You can't see it, fortunately. But what this is getting at is if you can have a highly responsive computing in an analysis environment that's much faster than your disk-based environment, then you are going to be able to run more queries, and the response time is just going to be, somewhere between 10 to 100 or 150 times faster. You're just going to be more satisfied with your queries. So that's a given, all right? But this next one is more telling, and that is, how is do you have high trust in your data systems and policies? Well, 50% of the non-in-memory respondents said they did, but 63% of the in-memory computing respondents said that they had high trust. And that gets to the fact that you can do your queries faster, you can analyze your information and inspect it in a highly relevant manner. So again, that aids to higher trust. But now the drill down question here is the quality and relevance of your analyzed data. 59% said they had high quality and that the data they were analyzing was relevant. Well, and this is because your development cycles are compressed in an in-memory environment. That profile, discovery, analyze, and then reload, that cycle where you load the data, you profile it, you discover it, and you analyze it, that cycle of getting closer and closer to high-quality data and relevant data is compressed just because your HANA data environment, your modeling environment, is much more responsive and quicker because it takes less time to develop reports. So you're going to have a higher quality of information because you can compress those development cycles. And then last but not least, as you can well imagine, you're going to have a higher satisfaction with access anywhere and any time because of in-memory computing. And next slide. So our customers come to us through 5 generalized vectors, and this is where we get our market intelligence from. They're either coming to us where they want us to merge together disparate external data sources, and they perceive HANA as a target environment in which to do that. Or they come to us through BW, SAP BW. They have an existing SAP BW environment, and they want to accelerate the performance of that installation. There's a lot of cubes in it, a lot of legacy cubes. They're just not getting the reporting performance out of it that they need. So they're coming to us to speed that up, or maybe they're coming to us straight from the BI reporting front end, where they have reporting problems, and it may not be directly related to BW, and maybe some other data systems that they're trying to report off of. Certainly there is ECC, which is a euphemism for, or it's actually the Executive Command Console for SAP Business Suite. I use those terms interchangeably, SAP Business Suite and ECC. If you hear me say ECC, don't worry. But they'll come to us and say, hey, we need to improve our performance of ECC. And then the last one is SAP HANA, where they've already been, they've already bought in on the value prospect and promise of HANA, and they just want us to deploy those solutions for them. And so those are the 5 different ways that clients come to us, and this is where we're getting our market intelligence from. So the top 3 use cases that we saw in 2012 was first, HANA Agile Data Marts, BW on HANA, and then COPA, which stands for Controlling and Profitability and Analysis. That's a subset of data inside of Business Suite, and there are other objects or data sets inside of Business Suite that are relevant for the use of an RDS, and an RDS is a rapid deployment service. And basically, that is a prepackaged service that you can use or employ to extract data out of, or I should say, replicate data out of your Business Suite installation onto a HANA accelerator to, again, improve reporting and performance. And And so these three use cases are reflective that in 2012, at the very beginning of 2012, HANA essentially started out the year primarily as what I term analytics accelerator. And so, but with 2013, the landscape has changed, and we'll get into that in a moment of how I'd see, or how we see that environment for 2013 evolving. But let's work our way through three use cases and that were predominant in 2012. And the first use case is the SAP HANA Agile Data Mart. And I'll use this wholesale distributor of IT equipment and supplies as the case study here. They are a global wholesale supplier of computer systems. They have a presence in over 40 different countries. And the scope of their particular project is they wanted to, or they do daily uploads of 3 gigabytes of sales data into their sales and order data mart. And so you can see the high-level diagram, enterprise architecture diagram here on the right-hand side, where the sales order entry is made into their Oracle Customer Data Warehouse. And then there's a pull, or an extract from that data warehouse, a daily pull of 3 gigabytes worth of data, a complete and total refresh of information into their sales and order data mart. And from there, they connect to that with SAP Explorer to pull and generate reports, specifically Microsoft Excel dashboards. Well, the problem that they were facing is that their existing BI environment was way too slow. First problem is that they had an over an hour load of data into the sales and order data mart. What that meant was that there was an hour blackout period during the day where the sales managers, those 50 sales managers, could not run any reports. And you can imagine if you're a global supplier and your salespeople are scattered across the globe, if you're doing your daily load at, say, 6 a.m. Pacific time in North America, then that means that you're doing that same load is 9 a.m. for the East Coast time. So this was proving to be a problem for them, that blackout period. Also, the average query took 7 minutes on average across the different reporting queries for those different sales managers to conduct analysis by either product line or sales manager or region or country. And what they wanted to know was what was the price sensitivity of various hot products, from the previous day's sales specials, because they wanted to adjust and tune and tweak their pricing. And they really did suffer the inability to make timely changes to their web offers, that reflected their actual market dynamics. So the bottom line goal was to get the upload time, the daily upload time, reduced to less than 20 minutes, which they achieved via HANA, but more importantly was to reduce their query time from 7 minutes down to less than 10 seconds. This particular client determined that they could withstand a 10-second query interval for their sales managers with no significant loss of use of the system. The sales managers would be making the right decisions, the timely decisions, if all they had to do was wait 10 seconds. A 7-minute query time is a long time. I mean, you kind of have to plan your activities around running that query, like go to the men's room or the ladies' room or get a cup of coffee, and you got to do something while you're waiting for that query to run and return. And it was impacting the quality of their decisions because, some of the managers were saying, well, I think this is what the query is going to show. We'll go ahead and make this decision and we'll run the query later, and I bet the query will prove me right. Well, there were errors in that decision-making process just because they didn't want to take the time to run the query. So the HANA benefit here was, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner of the modified systems architecture, is what they did was they replaced their sales and order data mart, their disk-based data mart, with a HANA Agile data mart. They pulled all the data into HANA. They did away with the sales and order data mart, and they reduced their upload time from 1 hour to 20 minutes, and they reduced their average query time to less than 0.7 seconds, which was fantastic for them. And it improved their overall decision making. It improved their ability to make timely changes to their web pricing, their sales analysis, even the product mix. They could change their product mix because they were able to run more significant queries, not just on a daily basis, but on a broader basis, because some of those queries might take hours to run where they took minutes with SAP HANA. So they were able to do more in-depth analysis. So that was the use case for the HANA Agile Data Mart. The next one is through a manufacturer of motor vehicle parts. And for them, they had a relatively small data set size, only about 36 million records, and about 64 gigabytes of customer, vendor, and sales channel data. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner, the slide there, their simplified enterprise architecture, where the SAP and Oracle Data Warehouse and Excel spreadsheets were all being loaded into a SAP BW reporting mart, and they were using BEX to connect to that and then extract and generate Excel reports via BEX. This is a classic SAP BW reporting mart scenario. Well, unfortunately, they had a number of problems with this. First problem was they didn't have the capability, or they didn't have significant IT capability to develop new marts inside of BW, develop new cubes. They had an IT bandwidth backlog of over 2 months, and they wanted to integrate new data into that system, but also they had substantial reporting delays of the existing data that was in SAP BW, sometimes on the upwards of 40 minutes to run a report in BW. So that was definitely impacting their ability, again, to make timely decisions or to make decisions at all. They had to do a lot of gut hunches just because they couldn't run the reports and conduct the analysis that the business really needed. So for them, their solution for that was to go to SAP BW on HANA. And that's the architecture in the lower right-hand screen, where all of that BW information, their SAP BW environment was upgraded to 7.3, and then it was moved over to HANA. And so with that, the benefits for them was it increased the speed and reporting of their, and monitoring of their sales data, their information. It allowed them to drill down into invoice data through their reports rather than run a high-level report and ask for the invoice data separately, multi-step process. When they saw they could get right straight down to the invoice data, they were just awe-inspired. And it also provided to them a simplified platform for data integration, because with HANA, you get the data files, you load them into HANA. You don't have to do a lot of upfront complex ETL data mapping. You load the data files into HANA, and then you do your analytical attribute and calculation views in HANA with the data right there. And this speeds up the load, profile, discovery, analyze, and then reload process. And for them, there's no reload process because the data is in HANA. It's very simple for them to add new fields that are already in HANA to existing reports, and it really shortens that development cycle down. It accelerated their IT development schedule because it did it in two ways. A, it made the system is much more adaptable, but B, the HANA reporting environment, once you have all the data loaded in there and you have the basic attribute and analytical views established, It's a relatively simple thing to add new fields to existing reports, and in a matter of hours, rather than having to wait for days or weeks for the overburdened IT department to do that, the more technically inclined business people were able to do it. So for them, the implementation was SAP BW on HANA, which was our second use case. The third use case is the HANA accelerators. And remember, these are the three common use cases we saw for 2012. And so in the upper right-hand corner of the slide, you can see the high-level enterprise system architecture for that. You have new financial transactions being loaded into their SAP ERP system. The data was then extracted out of that into an SAP BW reporting marked, and then from there they had SAP BEX and Webby generating reports and dashboards. So that was all fine and dandy, but this telecommunications provider is a global provider, have a presence throughout most of the world. And the scope of the system is they have 600 gigabytes of financial data that's in that SAP BW reporting mark. Accounting documents, general ledger, including their cleared and open items. And it is about 900 million rows of data across all of the various objects. And they have about 1.5 gigabytes worth of daily just financial transactions that they're entering in, just financial transactions. And these financial transactions are coming in all through the day. And one of their goals was for their financial analysts to be able to run a report anytime during the day and have no more than a 2-minute latency between when the financial transaction hit the SAP ERP system and when it appeared in the report. That was their maximum, was a 2-minute latency. And so the use case had they were going through a incremental deployment, and their first pilot was just to accelerate their financial reporting. They had a series of pilots, and this is a common thread across a lot of HANA customers, is they will implement a series of pilots that build one upon the other, build confidence in the system, build credibility in the technology, and credibility and confidence in their staff and capabilities of everyone else. And so for them, it was taking, for some BW reports, anywhere between 3 and 10 hours to run them. It was a lot of data. And it was seriously impacting their ability to close out their monthly and financially quarterly reports in the required 5-day window. Especially for quarterly reports, you hear about the infamous 5-day window. You need to close out within that period. Well, they were not able to do it because they had so many different previous mergers and acquisitions, different systems, different information, and just the volume of the data was really impacting their financial closeout period. So, and on top of that, their goal was to accelerate financial reports in general. And so the benefits, well, what they did was, forgive me, let me explore the lower right-hand corner of the slide. What they did was they implemented SAP, or they implemented what we call an RDS, a Rapid Deployment Solution. And this particular RDS was focused on the BSEG data, which is, the financial information in the BSEG group of information within inside of SAP ERP. And what they did was they left their SAP reporting marked, the BW reporting mark, in existence because there's a lot of other reporting that was being done out of that. But they also replicated the data out of ERP onto SAP HANA and used that as an accelerator for the BSEG reports and the BSEG data. So that the interesting little trick about this is when you implement that particular RDS or the SAP HANA accelerator, when a person runs a report through what they call the ALS grid in SAP ERP, by redirecting that particular report it doesn't pull the data from ERP, it pulls the data from HANA. The data in HANA is identical to what's in SAP ERP because the real-time replication tactics and technology of being able to move the data into HANA from ERP through SLT or any of the other different mechanisms. So when you run the report in ERP, it looks like you're pulling the data from ERP, but you're actually pulling it from HANA at a much faster throughput. And since, by the way, the data is now in HANA, you can connect reports and dashboards to that data rather than connect it to the SAP BW reporting mark. So in this case, they ran the SAP HANA accelerator with the replicated financial data in parallel to their original BW reporting mark. So the benefits here were that their managers could get timely input on their financial status, and their numerous merger and acquisition events could now close within the 5-day window. And this implementation was with the HANA Accelerator, or otherwise known as an RDS deployment. So let's look at 2013 and the conditions that we see affecting client use cases for this year. For certain, in-memory technology now has over a year of market adoption and client production deployments. There's more success stories, there's more advocates, there's more references, and SAP has obviously had a whole year to refine and improve any the technical deployments and installations of HANA. But I think most importantly here, with the release of SAP Business Suite on HANA, and I've got a slide that talks about this at the end, the in-memory application market has fundamentally changed. And I think in particular the SAP ecosystem has fundamentally changed. HANA is no longer considered just an analytics accelerator. It is now a real-time technology platform because Business Suite is on it, and people use Business Suite for a mission-critical application, and that is operational management of their enterprises, whether it be manufacturing, finance, HR, all of those critical applications and functional uses that manage the corporate information. And we're not talking reporting here, folks. We're talking on, okay, what did we spend for finances? Load the costing of our maintenance in there. Develop maintenance plans and failover analysis. These are the tools, these are the operations people use to manage very complex businesses. So, HANA is now a real-time technology platform, and its market scope is for hosting applications, certainly data repositories, but also operations management. And so what this has done is it's moved the technology envelope out, all right? And the HANA Agile Data Marts and BW on HANA are no longer considered on the bleeding edge or even on the leading edge anymore because the environment has expanded out further. So this is kind of significantly reduced through SAP's deployment of Business Suite on HANA. It's significantly reduced any psychological or technical concerns about the success of HANA in the environment. So I see this, the way we see this working is through those factors here, these conditions, we see them probably benefiting HANA Agile Data Marts. We see the number of HANA Agile Data Mart projects increasing. But we also see BW on HANA projects increasing, and that may cannibalize some HANA Agile Data Marts, but I still see the number of HANA Agile Data Marts in 2013, the pace of those increasing. But probably one of the big winners is going to be BW on HANA, because now that ECC is on HANA, BW customers are more comfortable with HANA in particular. And there's going to be a growing well of people that want to think about putting ECC on HANA, but they've got BW first, and so that kind of market impetus to get ECC on HANA is actually going to push the BW deployments on HANA first, ironically enough. Some people might say, well, Frank, if you put ECC on HANA, do you really need BW on HANA? Well, it depends on your use case, but the more important question is the stepwise improvement in your overall IT environment and ecosystem. The customers probably have got a lot of other data in BW other than just ERP. I mean, a lot of third-party systems, they've used this as a reporting mart for a lot of different cubes. And so we see the BW deployments on HANA going up in 2013. We see the COPA and other RDSs, the HANA accelerators, I think they're going to stay relatively flat because, I mean, the number of projects will probably stay the way it is, but I think some of those people are going to take a wait-and-see approach and say, well, rather than do an RDS, let's think about moving all of ECC on HANA. Now, I think there's wide variability here, and could very well be wrong about my prediction on this one, and here's why. Because an RDS is a way to incrementally move ECC onto HANA. With Business Suite on HANA, you have the application, everything is on HANA, the code, everything is running on HANA, and everything is improved. Whereas with an RDS, conceptually, only a small subset of the data has been moved to HANA. But if you take that premise a step further and you deploy a series of RDSs, then you can move 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 core critical data objects and reports over to HANA and still retain your ECC environment on whatever disk-based database you have. So it's kind of like a hybrid scenario. So that's why I want to hedge here a little bit, because there's a number of factors that are impinging on, you know, number 3 here, and that's COPA and the HANA accelerators. However, if we go down to 4, Business Suite on HANA, brand new for 2013, wasn't available 2012. So obviously the number of people interested for that will be an increase. I think the primary people that are going to be initially interested in this are the ones that are already on the cusp of upgrading ECC. They've got a bogged down deployment or installation. It's overwhelmed with data. It's got a vast number of users, and the system performance is really hurting, and they've already been toying with an upgrade to their ECC platform. You know, the computing environment and the database, they've been toying with that for a couple of years already. Those are the people that are probably going to, you know, take a hard look at moving ECC onto HANA, because why upgrade to another disk-based platform if ECC is going to give you, you know, orders of magnitude greater performance? And I think those are going to be the first people, and a number of other use cases, but those will be the first people that are really, and that's what I'm seeing, it's those people that want ECC on HANA. The last evolving use case, I think, the predictive analytics and specialized applications. I think those number of projects are going to stay relatively the same in 2013, only because the more people that put BW on HANA or ECC on HANA or moving the HANA Agile data marts on HANA, they kind of take away some of the impetus for those specialized applications. And so it's going to be give or take here. So like I said here, they'll be seeking to answer the question, would the BW or ECC so much faster, or what else do I need? Well, they may indeed need predictive analytics on HANA, but they won't know. And they'll need to do some due diligence there, and there'll be more work and research will be needed on their part. So One thing I want to mention before we get near the end of our, actually, there's a couple things I want to mention before we get at the end of our webinar here, and that is, you know, in 2012 we saw a fair number of customers interested in hosting HANA, and it offers a number of alternatives for deploying your use cases. And this chart here is a good way of analyzing those decision factors for whether you want to have HANA on-premise or in the cloud. And you can see the grid, the scale goes from left to right. On the left, those are the factors that support or lean towards an on-premise deployment, whereas the right, the blue shade, leans towards a more hosted solution. And so each of these rows, you know, like availability of capital, HANA growth over time in terms of data set size, what's your go-live urgency, you know, your proximity to users. For the wholesale IT supplier, for them, they went the hosted route because of go-live uncertain or go-live urgency. They just could not get a firm, fixed commitment out of their own IT organization for deploying HANA on site. So they had a very uncertain future date, and they needed to deploy this new solution ASAP. So, you know, if you've got, if you don't have your data center staff, if it's maxed out, or your systems administrative staff is maxed out, or you're, again, with that wholesale IT supplier, they had users that were very distant from that sales reporting mart that was slowing down their query functions. If you lean towards the right-hand side here, it definitely supports the case of deploying HANA on or in the cloud. And just so you know, HANA in the cloud has a number of value propositions, like you don't have to worry about purchasing the hardware. You've got lower operational complexity. Your HANA systems and infrastructure is, you know, delegated to experts that are, you know, tuned up on managing HANA. Certainly reduces your IT burden. It elevates your deployment success because you get a faster ROI. There are just so many details you don't have to worry about that, you know, the hosting provider is paid to take care of and expert on handling for you. But, you know, maybe the last bullet point down here might be the cliff, or might be the real tell for some of these, and that is it changes the budgeting equation from CapEx over to OpEx. And depending on your financial, your corporate financial policies and funding for that year, this may be a key differentiator for HANA, because you may not have capital budget to buy the hardware, but you've got operational budget for a service. So my last slide here has to do with you know, what to consider when you're moving Business Suite on HANA. When you're planning an ERP migration to HANA, you should consider these factors, because this is the big project for 2013, and that's SAP Business Suite on HANA. So when you're planning that, think about, you know, the speed of HANA will eliminate some old workarounds that you've been living with to improve your reports. And by eliminating a lot of those old workarounds, because you can add more users, you can save more data, you don't have to archive the information and offload it. Because of the columnar compression and HANA compression, you keep more data. A lot of old workarounds are done, and the cost of supporting those old workarounds and the time to use those workarounds, it's all gone. Think carefully about that. Your user experience will dramatically improve, but so may the usage. That's a good thing, because you're going to have people using more data, better data, in a more timely fashion. And they'll be thinking more positively about the operational environment you put together. If you've been constraining your user logins because of poor performance, you won't have to worry about that anymore. Your data archiving threshold can be raised. There's a general rule of thumb out there that for Business Suite, you want to consider archiving data once your data set size or your repository size gets up around 640 gigabytes. Well, that threshold is definitely raised because of the compression factor with HANA. The HANA license is competitive to other database licenses, so if you're faced with, database license renewal for, I don't know, DB2 or Oracle, whatever, consider that the HANA license is going to be very competitive against those licenses. If you are faced with an expansion or upgrade of your existing installation, the HANA server cost will compare favorably with the hardware cost of your future expansion that you're looking at. And then understand that not all of your data needs to be loaded onto HANA. There are a number of nearline replication strategies available that, the data isn't archived, but it's put in a nearline storage that can be retrieved relatively quickly, and one of those nearline storage options is certainly with SAP Sybase IQ. And then last but not least, don't forget that hosting is an excellent way to pilot your first migration of ECC on HANA. And so with that, I'd like to turn the floor back over to Terry, and we can go through any questions we may have. Terry?
Thanks, Frank. As Frank said, the floor is now open for any questions you may have. You can enter any questions into the question pane, which is located on the right-hand side of your window, and we'll answer as many as we can, being respectful of your time. And Frank, during the presentation, we had a couple come through, so we'll start with those. The first is multifaceted. Is HANA capable of versioning? It seems like if you're capable of running what-if scenarios, and they were speaking specific to the Agile Data Mart use case. And if you can run different versions, can you save multiple version scenarios at the same time?
The answer to all of those questions is yes. And that is really a sweet spot of the HANA Agile Data Marts, because you can have a number of attribute and analytical views defined depending on what sort of reporting goal you need. You can mix and match the data, and through your calculation views, you can create separate calculations, or what you call versions. So the simple answer is yes, and that has proved to be a powerful feature for other clients in developing. I mean, because let's look at it this way. There can be a number of different ways to combine customer data and review customer data, whether in, say, manufacturing or sales or customer support. And through those different versions, you can derive different information or create different reports. Next question, Terry.
Sure. Is HANA integrated into SAP's APO, their supply chain tool?
What that is the data is actually integrated into HANA, or the links. There's a number of ways to achieve that integration, either through real-time data replication, data transference. I don't know if APO is on HANA. That would be a follow-up question that we would have to ask.